Well, we have made it. The best time of year is here. March Madness has arrived, and so it is time to sharpen those pencils and dig in because we have some brackets to break down, and it all starts right now.
Ogunbowale for the win.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.
Happy Monday, friends. It is March 13th, 2023. We have made it the best Monday of the college basketball season, the one after Selection Sunday. That means March Madness is officially upon us. I am Missy Heidrick, National Women's Basketball Correspondent here at The Next, and thank you for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit, match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. That's prizepicks.com, promo code Locked On. Well, you can follow me, Missy Heidrick, on Twitter at Missy Heidrick, and then be sure to follow this podcast at Locked On WBB, and then also jump over to The Next, the 365 24/7 space where all things women's basketball are covered, www.thenexthoops.com. And then you can also follow us there on Twitter at thenexthoops. Well, the 2023 NCAA tournament is here. The brackets were announced last night, and so now it is time to do what we do. We're going to nitpick at the selections. We're going to break down the overall bracket layout. We've got to look at some surprises of who is in and who is not. And then we've got to talk about those 4 play-in games that are going to kick off the tournament this week starting on Wednesday, March 15th. Well, first, let's start with this overall selection process. And I think we have to give due to the 2023 Women's Basketball Division I Selection Committee. They did what I think, in my opinion, a very good job of putting together a bracket that reflects what we're seeing across women's basketball: parity. Lisa Peterson, chair of the selection committee, she was on this podcast with me probably about a month and a half ago. And we talked a lot about selection criteria, about the process of putting together this field of 68. And in that process, there are tons of conversations that happen not only within the committee, but then outside with conference administrators, coaches conference calls, regional conversations. And that is the one probably theme that they heard a lot of over the course of this season was parity in women's basketball. We know what the transfer portal has done. We have seen how teams have gotten older because of those extra years of eligibility, as we still see the pendulum switch with the COVID years for players. And all of that has created what I think is a fantastic field of 68 that really does and is going to display what women's basketball is all about. Now, we know this bracket is a reflection. It's a reflection of upsets that happened over the course late in the regular season and into conference tournaments. Leagues that may have been a 2-bid mid-major league kind of sitting on the bubble, that was no longer. That was not going to happen. But that is what March Madness is all about. That's why you play postseason conference tournaments. And so teams can give themselves a chance to punch their ticket and be part of the NCAA tournament. Happened all over the country. Some people were left out because of it. Others simply are now going to get a chance to continue their season on the biggest stage and in one of the best sporting events all ever, the NCAA tournament. Now, the men's bracket also has been set. So for those of you that are going to be doing dual brackets, I'm going to leave it to the others to break that one down. We're going to talk about the women's basketball bracket here today. All right, let's first talk about the number 1 seeds. Really not a lot of surprises. For some there were. To me, did not seem as though that was going to be a surprise. You've got South Carolina, obviously, as a number 1 seed, and it has been pointed out that they could be the 5th team to have an undefeated season and win an NCAA championship if they can get through to win a championship in Dallas in a few weeks. We will wait to be seen. As I always like to say, if you want to be the best, you've got to be the best. Right now, the best, in my opinion, absolutely, is South Carolina. You've got Indiana as well as a number 1 seed. Virginia Tech as a number 1 seed, which was a bit of a surprise, and then Stanford as a number 1 seed, which also was a bit of a surprise for some people. But ultimately for me, those aren't necessarily the ones that stand out as much. I think Virginia Tech 100% deserves that number 1 seed. I like this team that they have, the balance, what they were able to do in the ACC tournament. It is just quiet, very workmanlike. It's not going to be splashy, but that's the thing about trying to beat Virginia Tech is you are going to have to be really, really good night in and night out. And when they've got the ACC Player of the Year and Elizabeth Kitley, and then you've got a player like Georgia Amore who runs the point for Kenny Brooks, I really like this Virginia Tech squad. Now, I think their bracket, the Seattle 3 regional, is one of the most interesting throughout the course of the tournament, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Now, some of the surprises of the teams that the last 4 in versus the first 4 out. Well, the last 4 in were Illinois, Mississippi State, Purdue, and St. John's. Ironically, all 4 of those teams will be playing in play-in games earlier this upcoming week. So we will talk about all of them in just a little bit. The breakdown as it looks as the way of the leagues and the number of teams that got in. Keep in mind, you've got 32 automatic qualifiers that come into the field and then 34 at-large bids. Those are the slots that were left up for discussion, more than likely by the selection committee as they went on with their day. The ACC with 8 teams in, the Big Ten with 7 teams in, the Pac-12 with 7 teams in, the SEC with 7 teams in, the Big 12 with 6 teams in, the 6 teams in. The 6 teams by the Big 12, actually the highest percentage of any Division I conference in the country. And we will talk a little bit about a couple of those surprises down the road. One of them that did not make it in from the Big 12, the first 4 out, that was Kansas. An interesting dilemma, I think, for the committee, as was Columbia from the Ivy League. Said just a moment ago, we were sitting there on the bubble maybe 3 or 4 days ago thinking, could a Ivy League as a mid-major conference get 2 teams in? Well, in listening to Lisa Peterson and some of the discussion that they had and her quotes afterwards in opportunities where she met with the media, she talked a little bit about both Kansas and Columbia, the decisions about those teams and whether or not they were going to be in the tournament. But specifically, it really kind of came down to the fact that not only they did start their season well. Kansas was ranked in the top 25. Columbia was getting votes in the AP top 25. They had a great season. They were playing very well at the beginning, started to fade, had some drop off mid-year, and then just did not finish well in their conference tournament. Specifically for Kansas, it was the quarterfinal loss to TCU. That was not a good loss whatsoever in the eyes of the committee and ultimately really did do in this Kansas team. They will be playing in the WMIT. For Columbia, it was some of the same scenario that they did not play well late or into their conference tournament. The other 2 teams that were part of the first 4 out, UMass and Oregon. UMass is the story because they lost in the Atlantic 10 Conference Tournament Finals to St. Louis, who is in the NCAA tournament. Therefore, UMass is on the outside looking in. Oregon, in my opinion, probably always was going to be on the outside looking in. It was going to take a real feat for them, especially at the Pac-12 tournament, one they did not pull off. Therefore, those teams are not in this year's field of 68. There are 4 teams that are first-timers in the NCAA tournament, which is a fantastic team. One I've already mentioned, St. Louis. They are in as the Atlantic 10 champions. Southeast Louisiana, Southern Utah, and Sacramento State, all with first-time opportunities to be in the NCAA tournament. A fantastic accomplishment for those programs. Those are things that coaches and recruits build upon, and that makes it incredibly exciting moving forward. Congratulations to all of them. I hope those players enjoy every single moment of this ride over the next couple weeks. And it's really hard to ignore that in the state of Iowa, they're going to have 3 Division I teams, all of which won their postseason conference tournaments. Yesterday, you had Iowa State and Drake both winning their conference tournaments respectively at the Big 12 and the Missouri Valley. And then it was Iowa, the Hawkeyes, who are a number 2 seed in this tournament. Caitlin Clark led them not only to a fantastic finish of the regular season, but also to that Big Ten Conference Tournament Championship. 3 teams in the NCAA tournament out of the state of Iowa. Pretty remarkable. And congratulations to both Drake and Iowa State as their men's programs are in too. You've got quite the amount of basketball that will be played in the state of Iowa over the next couple weeks. All right. There's so many different stories, but one of the things we've got to start talking about is what is it going to look like as this bracket unfolds over the next week or so. So we are going to do that in just a moment so we can pick out some games that you need to keep an eye on early and the things you need to know as you fill out your bracket. But first, a message from our friends at Prize Picks. Well, how does this work with Prize Picks? Well, you go on and you pick 2 to 6 players, and if they will go score more or less than their Prize Pick projections, you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. There's no competing against other people. It's just you and the projections available. If you project against Luka Doncic in the NBA, then you have an opportunity to win. They offer projections on any sport that you watch. This includes the NBA, NFL, MLB, obviously men's college basketball, women's college basketball, could be soccer, the WNBA coming up, NASCAR, if that's what you're into. It's all there on Prize Picks. Entries are made at 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. It's safe and fast withdrawals. Currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. So download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, Prize Picks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter the promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. Hi, everybody. I am Missy Heidrick, and thank you for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen every day. We're talking about the fantastic field for the 2023 NCAA Women's Basketball Championship, what it looks like, where we are, some interesting seeds, which we are going to get into right now, and I think some interesting games that you are going to want to keep an eye on and teams to watch out for. We talked a little bit about those first 4 in and first 4 out. We'll dive into more of the first 4 in just a moment when we talk about how the teams that are going to be in the play-in games. I want to go back, just remind everybody about the selection process for this tournament. Keep in mind, Lisa Peterson talked about it here on this podcast. They mentioned it yesterday. The net is obviously something that teams have to look at. It is about efficiency, and it really does dictate and show how teams play. But there are also other criteria that have been used. We know they look at the last 10 games, how teams are trending as they move forward. They have an availability of talent? That is something that has come up, whether it was head-to-head outcomes or your conference strength of schedule, significant wins, significant losses. All things that are taken into account as this committee looks as where not only the teams that are selected into the tournament, but also where teams are placed on their seed lines. Now, a couple surprises, and a lot of it is going to be in this Seattle 3 bracket, one that really was interesting for me. Number 1, Tennessee coming in as a number 4 seed. Well, part of that comes from the fact that the only team Tennessee has lost to over the course of the last few weeks has been South Carolina, both in the regular season and in the SEC tournament. That bode well for the Lady Vols to be able to garner that number 4 seed, be in that top 16, and be able to host in Knoxville. What was a surprise was Iowa State, even though they did win the Big 12 postseason tournament yesterday. On Sunday, they did not move up. We know what type of crowds they draw at Hilton Coliseum and in Ames, Iowa. Could they have just enough juice with that win to get them over the hump by beating Texas? It didn't happen. The Cyclones stay at that number 5 line. They will play Toledo, which is an incredibly interesting story for those that don't know. That is where Bill Finley was head coach prior to coming to Iowa State 28 years ago. And that is kind of the old stomping grounds for Coach Finley. They will line up against Toledo in that 5-12 game, but it also makes an interesting matchup for Tennessee. They take on SLU, a first-time appearance in the NCAA tournament. The winner of that game plays in Knoxville. That is a Saturday, March 18th look. One of the other questions a lot of people were unsure of was about North Carolina. Where would the Tar Heels fall? Well, the Tar Heels fall into that number 6 slot. They are not in a host situation and are on the road for this tournament. Now, One thing that always points out, those 8-9 games, the one that we have to look at, those are always interesting. As you fill out your bracket, they are going to be tough to pick. The hardest part is that as a winner of that 8-9 game, congratulations, you get the number 1 seed on their home floor. That is not an easy one to pick, and it is not an easy road for those teams. Will we see an upset? Possibly. Not necessarily going to happen. However, I think the most upsets usually and can happen in a lot of these 7-10 and 6-11 games. We have to start thinking about where these teams line up and what they look like. One that is interesting for me as we go forward is going to be that 5-12 game, however, which is Oklahoma and Portland over in the Greenville 1 bracket. Keep in mind that Portland beat Gonzaga in the West Coast Conference Finals. This Oklahoma team played well at the Big 12 tournament, but a little bit limping in simply with some injury issues. Did that impact seeding wise? Probably not. But I think Oklahoma, with the way that they can score the basketball, they can beat anybody. But Portland will not be a walkover in that 5-12 game. We also talked about availability of talent as a selection criteria from the committee. Notre Dame, they have not disclosed anything about Olivia Miles' injury, the sophomore sensation guard for the Fighting Irish. They haven't said whether or not she's going to be available for the tournament, maybe at all. With that said, Notre Dame, they are going to be in at the number 3 seed in that Greenville bracket. They will play at home. Their games, it'll be interesting matchups. We'll see where they're at. They will have the winner of the Creighton and then the Illinois-Mississippi State game, which we will talk about in just a moment. All of that happens in South Bend. At the bottom of that Greenville bracket, a couple games that I think will be interesting to watch. Maryland, Holy Cross. You've got Holy Cross, the Patriot League champions. Their 12th in program history, their 12th Patriot League tournament title. Outstanding numbers and tradition in the Patriot League for Holy Cross. They get Maryland, an incredibly hot team, one you cannot overlook whatsoever as the 2 seed in that Greenville 1 bracket. And my hat goes off to West Virginia. They come in at 19-11 and they get in. It really was their finish. They played well, had an opportunity to win that quarterfinal game against Oklahoma State in the Big 12 tournament this past weekend. They lose on a buzzer beater, but it was their overall resume, how they finished, winning 3 in a row heading into the Big 12 tournament. Their wins over top 25 teams. They were incredibly competitive late. I think that is what tipped the scales in West Virginia's favor. They get in as that 6th team from the Big 12. Also, hats off to Oklahoma State. They are back in the tournament as well from Big 12 country. All right, I want to move to the Seattle 4 bracket. Now, the reason why the names are this, remember, we have all of the sites for the first and second rounds. Then it goes to 2 regional sites, Seattle and Greenville, South Carolina. 2 will be played in Greenville at the same time, 2 played in Seattle. Therefore, we've got Greenville 1 and 2 and Seattle 3 and 4. Might make it a little bit confusing. There's no Midwest, Southeast like they have on the men's side. You're just going to have to work to keep it straight. But if you've got your magic sheet, then you'll be able to keep track. Take a look at that Louisville-Drake game, which is Seattle. That's going to be a first-round game. That is a 5-12 matchup. Louisville getting themselves in the NCAA tournament by finishing strong. That was incredibly important for them. But this is a Drake squad, as we mentioned earlier, coming off a Missouri Valley Conference Tournament Championship. I really like Drake. I think that could be an interesting matchup. Keep your eyes on that 5-12 game. And one that stands out to me in that 6-11 bucket, that is going to be Colorado and Middle Tennessee State. Dan Insel's team, they've got 4 players that are averaging double figures. This team, they can score almost 74 points a game, and they gave up just 56 plus per game, and they caused over 17 turnovers a game as well. So you're going to have to take care of the basketball if you are the Colorado Buffaloes. That is one I find incredibly intriguing. That game is on Saturday, March 18th. Another one to keep your eyes on, 2 at-large teams, Florida State and Gonzaga, Florida State and Georgia, a 7-10 matchup. That will be on Friday, March 17th. Florida State in at the 7 at 23-9, Georgia in at the 10 at 21-11. A SEC, ACC matchup, 2 teams that, especially Georgia, may have not looked like they were going to get into the tournament until late, but really did have a strong finish. That's what's important. That's part of the eye test, but I think that will be a battle as those two teams will be in Iowa City. As we said, they play on the 17th, and then that is the winner of the Iowa Southeastern Louisiana team, and that is at home in front of a very friendly crowd at Carver Hawkeye Arena. All right. Another team that is incredibly interesting, another matchup that I think will be incredibly interesting as we bounce over to that Greenville 2 bracket. Michigan and UNLV. This goes back to that 6-11 line. You've got the Wolverines that come in at 22-9. Keep in mind they had a fantastic run last year. No Naz Hillman this season, but Kim Barnes-Arico and her squad didn't blink. They had a strong finish in the Big Ten. They were without Layla Felia for a while. She was out because of injury. She's back in the lineup, as is Leah Brown, more healthy as they head into the tournament. That will be key for them. Their team defense and the ability to share the basketball is what helped them get into the Elite Eight last year. They were just a smidge away from beating Louisville and getting to the Final Four, but I think Michigan can make a strong run. But they will have to survive UNLV. They are 21-2. They hold one of the longest winning streaks in the entire nation. That game will be on Friday, March 17th. That is a 6-11 game. The winner, they're in Baton Rouge. The winner gets LSU Hawaii. More than likely, they will be playing LSU on their home court. And then let's go back to that Seattle 3. This is Virginia Tech's bracket. The number 2 seed is UConn. Again, could have been the number 1. I'm sure that was a conversation in the room, but Virginia Tech, UConn, they sit there at the 1 and 2 seeds. A couple games to stand out for me. On Friday, the 17th, USC, who comes in as an at-large bid against South Dakota State, who now owns one of the also longest winning streaks in the nation right now. I had the opportunity to see the Jackrabbits in person. They blew through the Summit League tournament, and this is a team that I would not overlook whatsoever if I was USC. We talked about Iowa State and Toledo. That is a Saturday matchup on March 18th. We talked about Tennessee St. Louis, also a Saturday matchup. The winner of those two teams squaring off then on Monday. And North Carolina and the Purdue St. John's winner goes back to UNC, not being a host. They have to go on the road. They will be against Ohio State James Madison winner. Another Saturday game in that Seattle 3 bracket to keep your eye on. Baylor, Alabama, 2 at-large teams. That's a 7-10 game. Baylor as the 7, Alabama as the 10. Winner will take on UConn in Stores. Those are all intriguing matchups and create different dilemmas, especially for the higher seeded team. So if you're UConn, I don't know if you want to play Baylor or Alabama. Both are going to give you a different look of a matchup, but I see more upsets coming in that 7-10, 6-11 bucket than anywhere across the board. All right, in just a moment, the tournament starts in earnest on Wednesday, March 15th with the first 2 play-in games. We're going to break down those 4 matchups for you in just a moment and really give you the glimpse of this outstanding field of 68. The Built Bar March Madness is here. We know you have a favorite bar or puff, and now it's your time to make it count. So you need to go to builtmarchmadness.com to vote for your favorites. So you can vote for the chocolate bar or puff. And then if you want, let's say, UConn to win, then you'll be voting for that bar too. Support your team, support your bar or puff. And when you vote for your favorite bar or puff, you'll be entered into a drawing where 50 lucky Locked On listeners will get a free box of Built. Not only that, but one Locked On fan will win a 12-month subscription to Built to have Built's best bars and puffs delivered monthly straight to your door. You got to try Built. Built, the best protein bar ever. Seriously, they're so amazing. You won't think they're really that good for you. But what makes them so good? Well, for starters, they're all high in protein, low in sugar, and covered in 100% real chocolate, which is a winner in my book. That's right, real chocolate. So run to builtmarchmadness.com right now to vote for your favorite bar or puff and pick up a box while you're there. You can vote every day in March, so hop in and support your pick. Hi, everybody. I am Missy Heidrick, National Women's Basketball Correspondent at The Next. Thank you so much for joining us here on Locked On Women's Basketball. It is great to have you. We've been talking about this bracket for the 2023 NCAA Women's Tournament. It's so exciting to see all of these teams and the opportunity. And we know that there were bubbles that were burst and there were teams that were left out. Many of them are going to be playing the WNBA, which is a great opportunity for coaches and programs to continue to build that momentum, to kind of learn to win in the postseason. That can be a huge factor. But one of the things that's really exciting is it's fun to also be those last 4 teams in. Well, the last 4 teams into this bracket this season will all be part of the play-in games. Those start. We went from a field of 64 to a field of 68, and now we have 4 play-in games, and we're going to break them down for you just so you might have a feel of whether or not somebody could have a chance to really ding in an upset on your bracket. Okay, we start Wednesday, March 15th, for the number 11 seed to be able to face the number 6 seed Creighton. This is going to be Illinois and Mississippi State. Well, Illinois, they were ranked in the top 25 all year. They finished 22-9 overall. They were 3-2 in their last 5 games. Makira Cook, she's averaging almost 18 plus a game. The junior guard is the team leader in scoring and assists. This is a matchup of 2 first-year head coaches. Shauna Green taking over the Illinois program coming from Dayton, and she matches up with Sam Purcell's Mississippi State Bulldogs. This is year 1 for Sam Purcell in the head coaching chair, and to be able to get this team their first bid since 2019, congratulations to him. They were 20-10 overall, 2-3 over their last 5 games. Jessica Carter, the 6'5" senior, she's their leading scorer, almost 15 points a game. And senior Anastasia Hayes, she's their team leader in assists. This creates an interesting matchup. I think it's going to be where you're going to see 2 teams want to get up and down. Illinois averages almost 76 points a game. Mississippi State right about 72. But Illinois gave up 65 on the year, and Mississippi State gave up 59 on the year. So 2 huge defensively focused squads. They're going to pressure. They're going to get out and run when they can. This may be up and down a lot to get those legs moving, but the transition game will be in full effect. I would look for this to be an incredibly close game between Illinois and Mississippi State. The other game on Wednesday, March 15th, the second play-in game, is for the number 16 seed with the opportunity to stay in Palo Alto and to play the number 1 seed Stanford. This pits Southern against Sacred Heart. This is a Southern squad that went 18-14 on the year. They are winners of the SWAC Conference Tournament title. They won their last 5 games. They are on a roll and incredibly excited to be in the 2023 NCAA Tournament. They are going to take on a Sacred Heart squad that went 18-3 on the year, but in order to get to the NCAA tournament, had to make the run and won the Northeast Conference Tournament Championship. They beat Fairleigh Dickerson 72-60 in the finals. Nicira Pryor, the 5'3" freshman, she had 20 points and 11 boards in the final. It was her second double-double of the NEC tourney. This will be a battle between Southern and Sacred Heart to claim that 16th seed, to stay in Palo Alto in the sunshine for a couple extra days and get a shot at the number 1 seed Stanford. All right, then we move to Thursday, March 16th, and we've got to look at what is at stake with the number 11 seed at stake to play number 6, North Carolina, a team that did not get to host. They fell out of that 16. They're on the road. This team, the winner of this play-in game, will play North Carolina in Columbus, Ohio. And that is Purdue and St. John's, 2 teams that obviously, as we know from the selection committee, were part of the last 4 in. Purdue is 19-10 overall. They were just 2-3 in their last 5 games. They were 1-1 in the Big Ten tourney. They did finish better than others. I think that's why they got the nod to make it in. Lasha Petrie, 14.5 points a game. The senior guard is the leading scorer for the Boilermakers. And St. John's, they finished 22-8. They were 13-7 in the Big East. They did spend time in the top 25 AP poll this season. Now, they were 3-1 over their last 4 games. They did lose to Marquette in the Big East quarterfinals. Marquette, another at-large selection into the NCAA tournament. And senior guard Jayla Everett, she is 15.8 points per game, leads the Red Storm in scoring. So the other 2 teams that were the last part of the last 4 in, they will square off for a chance to take on the Tar Heels in Columbus on Saturday, March 18th. Now, the other play-in game that will also happen on Thursday, March 16th, and this is the other 16 seed to claim that number 16 spot at a chance and to play Indiana in Bloomington. And this is Tennessee Tech versus Monmouth. So these are two great stories, I think. Tennessee Tech, they come into the tournament. They are 22-9. The Golden Eagles are the Ohio Valley champions. They got that automatic qualifying bid. They have won 7 straight games, including that Ohio Valley Tournament championship, which was a 54-46 win over Little Rock. Congratulations to Tennessee Tech and welcome to the NCAA tournament. They get to face off with Monmouth, the Hawks, winners of the Colonial Athletic Association, and the first bid for Monmouth into the NCAA tournament since 1983. Head coach Jenny Bogus, this is just her second year in the head position with Monmouth. They won 4 games in 3 days, taking out the top 3 seeds, Townsend, Drexel, and Northeastern. Congratulations to the Hawks. They and the Golden Eagles will square off for that number 16 seed and a chance to face Indiana in the official first round of the NCAA tournament. There are games all over, ladies and gentlemen, ones that are going to turn our heads, ones we don't think will even be competitive, that absolutely will be. That is the beauty of the NCAA tournament. Do we think that the 4 seeds will continue to march on? Absolutely. Are they at chance of being upset? No doubt about it, because it doesn't matter if you win by 1 or 21. It is about survive and advance now once you get into this NCAA tournament field. Congratulations to all of the teams, all 68, every coach, every player, every support staff, every parent, every guardian, family member, and friend, because what you've done is put these people in a position where they can have success, and it will be the best week of their lives. For many of them, it will continue on. For some, it'll be just 1 game, but no matter what, they've had a chance and they've been in the NCAA tournament. And that right there is one heck of a feat. So congratulations to everybody who is in this field. And again, I tip my hat to the selection committee. I think they really did a fantastic job this season. All right. Well, you can find me, Missy Heidrick, on Twitter and all of my amazing colleagues at The Next Hoops, www.thenexthoops.com. You can follow them on Twitter at Next Hoops, and be sure to follow this podcast at Locked On WBB. So join me here next Monday as the NCAA tournament marches on. We're going to break down big wins, the upsets we know that are happening, the storylines, but you also have to come back all of this week because all of my amazing colleagues are here with more college basketball breakdown, international basketball news and notes. Don't forget, we've got you covered for the WNBA. Everything right here on Locked On Women's Basketball. Thank you for making this podcast, Locked On Women's Basketball, your first listen today. Now make your second listen, Game to Game NBA. Every moment, every top performance, every result, Locked On Game to Game NBA covers every game from across your area with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game NBA on the Locked On Network, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy March Madness. Best of luck as you fill out your bracket. You know it will not be perfect. March 17th, Friday, the official first day of the women's tournament, is St. Patrick's Day. There's a leprechaun out there. He may take it and burn it in your driveway, but no matter what, that is what the fun is all about. Best of luck as you fill them out.